welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Haley. I run the blog Handed Homemade, and today we are heading over to my mama's kitchen to make some freezer meals. We both work full-time jobs and life gets busy and we don't always feel like cooking from scratch as soon as we get home and making a whole meal for our families, because we value good nutritious foods that fuel our body and also saving money because we're not eating out, and we just value sitting down at the table and eating a home cooked meal with our families. We thought it would be a great idea to make some freezer meals to help us in those times or the season or the days that we just don't feel like coming home and cooking. Also, I have a cousin who is due to have a baby any day now, and we thought it would just be a good blessing to give her and her husband some food for her postpartum season after she has the baby, so she doesn't have to worry about what she's gonna eat or cooking a meal for her and her family. So I thought I'd bring you guys along with me as we make these freezer meals. I'll have all the recipes linked down below for you guys, and I'll mention if I tweak anything or anything that I recommend maybe doing differently. And yeah, before we go, please hit that subscribe button down below. I would love to have you be a part of this community that we have created here on YouTube. I share anything from gardening, DIYs, antiquing, thrifting. I'm dipping my toes into the homesteading style community, learning how to cook from scratch, can my own food, that sort of thing. So I would love to have you join me on this journey if that's something that you're interested in. So feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. And now, without further ado, let's head over to my mama's kitchen. Welcome to my mama's homesteading kitchen. This kitchen is the most functional kitchen that I have ever been in, and so much food has been made in this kitchen, and it's where we're going to be cooking all day long today. We are going to start out with some breakfast burritos and some bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits, and we're going to be making as much as we can from scratch. So we're starting out here. We have some ground beef laid out to thaw. This ground beef is from a local farm. We try to source all of our meat as local as possible, but to be honest, throughout this video you will see we're using up a lot of stuff that we already had in our freezer. Some of it we purchased before we started sourcing locally, and then some of it we just bought the better brand at Aldi or Walmart that we could get a hold of just because it saves some money. So we are baking our bacon today in the oven. Now listen, you guys, I believe that bacon should be fried in a cast iron wholeheartedly. Honestly, I think that's the only way to fry foods, but for time's sake, we're going to bake these in the oven today. Plus, if you're wrapping them up and freezing them, you can't really tell a difference. And we are trying to save as much time as possible because we are going to be cooking a lot of things at the same time. So to save on time and also space, because we need to use the eyes on the stove later on, we are going to be putting these in the oven today. We are popping some shredded hash browns onto a tray to add to the oven with the bacon. These are some that we just had frozen in our freezer, in our deep freeze, that we're trying to use up. This is before I started purchasing from Azar, same for my mom. And so these aren't necessarily organic, but they work. We don't want to be wasteful. We want to use the things that we have and use those up. But next go around, we will source some from higher quality ingredients, because I think that that's very important when you're trying to nourish your body and nourish it well. While the bacon and the hash browns are in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and add some black beans to the Instant Pot. That's a tip that I have for you if you are going to be meal planning or making freezer meals, is to go ahead and start any of the appliances that you have that could cook for you, like a crock pot or an Instant Pot. I highly suggest putting those on first and then moving on to other things. And so here I am adding the black beans to a strainer, and I'm going to give them a good rinse before adding them to the Instant Pot. And then I'm going to cut the Instant Pot on for about 30 minutes on high, and then they're actually going to stay on warm until we need them for the burrito bowls later on in this video. One thing that I love about breakfast burritos is that they're super customizable, and Mama really wanted some peppers and onions in hers, so she's chopping up the peppers here, and then I'm chopping up the onions. These onions she grew in her garden, so we're using some of the things that we already have, and then we're going to saute those down later on so that we can put them in her burritos. We wanted a choice between bacon or sausage for our burritos, but we knew that most of our bacon was going to be used in the biscuits that we're making, so we are cooking some ground sausage from a local meat market, and then that's going to be our main source of protein. We try to keep our breakfasts as high protein as possible so that we can stay full throughout our work day until lunchtime. Here is the finished bacon and the cooked sausage, and we're going to get started on our eggs. We are actually going to bake our eggs because it is the easiest way to save time, and also you're able to cut them into cute little squares so that you can put them in your biscuits, and it makes them really easy to freeze. Now, these are farm fresh eggs. My parents have free range hens, and because of that, we do have to crack them individually into a bowl before adding them to the main mixture, just because we don't want to get a bad egg if we had a broody hen, or if an egg got left out longer than we thought it did. While I'm working on the eggs, Mom is getting the yeast ready to make rolls here in a little bit, but I'm going to pour the egg mixture into a Pampered Chef pan. I will try to link this one down below for you guys. I love Pampered Chef. My mom has had hers for at least 30 years, as long as her and my dad have been married, and they've just stood the test of time. And so we both adore Pampered Chef. I've thrifted almost all of my pieces, or they have been gifted to me by friends and family, and I just swear by them. They're the next best thing to cast iron. So this is going into the oven, and you guys will see just in a minute what it looks like when it is baked. It's very puffy, but it's kind of like a Dutch baby, and it will actually fall back flat whenever it's set out, and just give it a minute to rest, and you can cut them into the squares once it has set. So I decided to try a new biscuit recipe. This one comes from Jess Sowards. She is over at Roots and Refuge and the Farmer's Table here on YouTube. But I only did her 8 biscuit recipe. I didn't double it or anything because I wanted to see whether or not I liked it first. Her recipe is very similar to the way my mom does her biscuits, but I wanted to see which one I preferred. Honestly, they tasted exactly the same, and my mom's doesn't call for the same amount of folds that Jess's called for. So maybe I'll post my mom's recipe on the blog one day, but I'll have this one linked down below for you guys. It called for 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of butter, and you want this cubed and cold. And I put mine in the freezer for a little bit before I cubed it so that it would stay nice and cold as I was working with it. And then 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of buttermilk, and then 2 tablespoons of butter, and you're going to melt this to pour over the top of your biscuits before popping them in the oven. And I'm cooking mine in a cast iron because, as I said earlier, I think things just taste better and belong in a cast iron skillet. Here you see my mom using her recipe to make biscuits. I'm fairly certain she tripled this recipe so that there's enough for us to take to my cousin who is expecting a baby. And she's just going to cut those out, and we're going to place them in the pan and bake them in the oven until they are golden brown on top. here's the finished result of the biscuits. They turned out beautifully. They are nice and flaky on the inside. They are perfect for breakfast or as a side dish. Now that the biscuits are baked, we are going to start assembling the burritos and the biscuits. You can see here we've sauteed our onions and our peppers and we've mixed those in with our sausage. We also shredded some organic cheese and we are just going to layer those up and add them to our tortillas. Usually we make our own tortillas, but we did not have time for that today with everything else we had going on. But we are rolling these up, and then we are going to wrap them in parchment paper so that we can freeze them, and then we can take them out individually and reheat them in the microwave. Now we are assembling the biscuits. We're adding cheese, egg, bacon. Here are the perfect little egg squares that I was talking about earlier. It just makes it so easy to cut and add those into the biscuits. Our yeast is now ready, so we are going to add the ingredients to the recipe I'll link down below for you guys to use to make our rolls. We are going to have to let it rise in the KitchenAid mixer. So we're mixing that together and then we're going to cover it and allow it to rise until it's time to cut them up and roll them out and let them do their second rise. We had some ripe bananas that needed used up, so while that dough is rising, I'm getting started on making banana nut muffins. This recipe I will link down below for you guys. I've used it time and time again and it's never failed me. The centers are always perfectly moist in this recipe. It's one of my favorites. So like I said, I'll leave it down below for you guys if you want to check that out. It's so simple and so easy to make. I am adding it into these really cute cast iron bundt pans. All the leftover mixture that I have, I'll be adding to just regular muffin tins, but I thought these bundt pans were too cute to not use. By the time the banana nut muffins are done, it is time to come back to our dough that was rising. What I am doing is I split the dough in half and then I began cutting those halves into small chunks. You want it to fit basically the palm of your hand, and you are going to start pinching and folding and rolling. So I pinch and fold until I get this nice oval shape, kind of like a small slider bun, and then I roll it all together and I set it off to the side. Once we are done with our rolling, we are moving on to the most important step when it comes to these rolls. You guys do not skip this step. Take some milk, brush it on the top of your rolls. It is going to give you the most beautiful brown topped rolls that you've ever seen. And then we're going to set it off to the side and we're going to let these rolls rise until they have filled out the pan. Then we're going to pop them in the oven and I will show you guys soon what these look like. This next recipe was a new one for us. It is a baked oatmeal recipe and I'll have it down below for you guys. I'll be completely honest though, this one wasn't my favorite. You see me using honey here. I think it would have been much better if I had have used organic unbleached cane sugar, or if I had have substituted the honey for maple syrup, because the honey just wasn't sweet enough and it kind of gave it a weird texture. So definitely don't recommend using honey, but if you do use honey, it is best after you've baked the oatmeal to top it with maple syrup. That's how we ate it. We didn't want it to go to waste, and it was really good after we did that. And then I topped ours specifically with blueberries and then did a raw sugar sprinkle on top, and it was so beautiful. This is what the finished product looks like. So pretty. And then here is a final shot of those rolls. You guys, these are beautiful. My father-in-law tells me they are like Lambert's Cafe roll. If you guys have ever been to Lambert's, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But they are such a hit when it comes to family reunions or church events. They're so delicious. The last few meals that I have to share with you guys are really simple and quick meals. These are things that we eat on a regular basis, so they didn't take long to throw together. The first one is spaghetti. You see me cooking the ground beef here. I wish I had a recipe that I could share with you guys as far as the meat sauce goes, but I don't. We used canned pasta sauce. My mom had canned some back last year after she harvested her garden, and that is what we mixed in with the meat. And then all we did is layer up the noodles and the meat sauce, and then added them to some disposable pans that could be easily reheated after being frozen. Next, we had our burrito bowl that we assembled. All we did was use rice as a base layer and then added in canned corn that my mom grew last year. Those black beans that you saw us put in the Instapot at the beginning of the video, and then we topped it with any other toppings that we wanted. So mom put onions on hers, and then we added some baked chicken that we just put a taco seasoning on, and then some cheese on top, and that went into the freezer. The last little freezer meal that we made was this chicken sausage and green bean bake, and what we did is we used these tomato and basil chicken sausages from Aldi. I really like that these are nitrite and nitrate free, and then we baked them in some bacon grease, added some green beans to them, and put those away into a pan. Lastly, these really weren't technically freezer meals, but my mom mixed together some seasonings or marinades for our chicken, and we just added these to Ziploc bags and added some plain chicken breast to them and then froze those. These come in handy when you have not thawed any meat for the day and you need a really quick meal. So I like to throw these into the Instant Pot with marinade and cook it, and it turns out with the most flavorful and juicy chicken. And here is the final shot of all the food that we made. Thank you guys for coming along with me today, and I hope I will catch you back in the next one. Bye, friends.